Imagine standing in the paint. You're 7 feet tall, you're an all-star, and suddenly you lose the ball. Interestingly, you never saw a defender nor felt a bump. You just got pickpocketed by a man who literally isn't as tall as your chest. A lot of NBA enthusiasts think Muggsy Bogues was just a gimmick, a feel-good story for the history books. But they're wrong. Muggsy didn't just survive in the land of giants, he terrorized them.
Starts to drive and Bogues just stripped it away. Takes it down against Paxson. Gives it.
And the reason why he was so dangerous has nothing to do with his height. Rather, it had everything to do with a secret advantage that big men were terrified to admit. At 5'3", Tyrone Muggsy Bogues was 16 inches shorter than the average NBA player. In a league where height is everything, he was an impossible glitch in the system. But don't let the size fool you. This wasn't a fluke. We're talking about a 12th overall draft pick.
The Washington Bullets select Tyrone Bogues,
who played 14 seasons, dished out over 6,000 assists, and once blocked a Hall of Fame center, Patrick Ewing. Today, we're breaking down the Muggsy method. We'll explore how he turned the shortest stature in history into a defensive weapon, the psychological warfare he used to break elite point guards, and the one specific rule change that would make him even more unstoppable in today's NBA. By the end of this video, you'll realize that being 5'3" wasn't Muggsy's weakness. It was his greatest superpower. The Baltimore Projects. Before Muggsy became a household name in Charlotte, he was merely a kid in the Lafayette Courts housing projects in East Baltimore. And if you know a thing or two about Baltimore basketball in the late 70s and early 80s, you know it wasn't a game. It was a survival test. This was the environment that forged Muggsy into the player that gave several NBA greats sleepless nights. At 5 years old, Tyrone was hit by a stray buckshot during a neighborhood altercation. He didn't just survive, he developed a nothing can hurt me mentality that would later terrify NBA giants. But the neighborhood kids, they didn't call him Muggsy because he was small. They called him Muggsy because his physical, aggressive style of play reminded them of a mugging. He would get really close to you, so fast that you felt like you were being robbed of the ball. But here is a part the history books often gloss over. Muggsy Bogues wasn't just a scrappy kid. He was a powerhouse of arguably the greatest high school basketball team in the history of the sport. The 1982 Dunbar High School Poets had David Wingate, Reggie Williams, and Reggie Lewis, 3 future NBA first-round picks on their team. And guess who was running the show? None other than a 5'3" whirlwind, Tyrone Bogues. That team was so good, it went 31-0. The year before, 28-0. They were the number 1 ranked team in the nation, and they didn't just win, they humiliated people. Now, being the engine room of such a team gives an insight into how much Tyrone brought to the table. Critics back then said the same thing scouts would say for the next decade. He's fun to watch, but he'll disappear when the competition gets bigger. But they were wrong. Every time the stakes got higher, Muggsy got faster. He went to Wake Forest and left as the ACC's all-time leader in steals and assists. He was proving a fundamental truth that the NBA was too arrogant to see. Height is a measurement, but speed is a superpower. When the Washington Bullets took him 12th overall in the 1987 draft, the media called it a PR stunt. They couldn't understand exactly why he was drafted. To them, he had no business being in the NBA. They thought the Bullets just wanted to pair the shortest player in history with the tallest, 7'7" Manute Bol for the posters. They thought Muggsy was there to sell tickets. Well, they were wrong, and we're going to find out. They didn't realize he was there to take over. The Giant Slayer. If there is one singular moment that defines the career of Muggsy Bogues, the one clip that every NBA fan has etched into their brain, it happened on April 14, 1993. It was a matchup between the Charlotte Hornets and the New York Knicks. On one side, you had Patrick Ewing, 7 feet tall, 240 pounds of pure muscle. and one of the most feared rim protectors in the history of Madison Square Garden. On the other side, a man who literally looked like he belonged in the front row of the stands rather than on the hardwood. Ewing does exactly what he's been taught since middle school. He keeps the ball high. He turns over his shoulder, expecting to see air. He thinks he's wide open. But Muggsy isn't just playing the game of basketball, he's playing a game of timing. As Ewing brings the ball up for the release, Muggsy doesn't jump. He explodes. With that 44-inch vertical, he reaches the apex of Ewing's shooting motion just as the ball is leaving his fingertips. This wasn't just a highlight. It was a psychological shift. It sent a message to every big man in the league. Nowhere is safe. If a 5'3" man can meet a Hall of Fame center at its highest point and win, then the traditional rules of height are officially broken. So what happens after the block? Muggsy didn't celebrate. He didn't beat his chest. He immediately secured the loose ball and started a fast break. This is the Muggsy method in a nutshell. The block wasn't for the cameras. It was a tactical turnover. He treated a 7-foot legend like just another guy at the park. The modern era. Now, critics love to say that Muggsy was a product of his era. They argue in today's NBA, a league dominated by three-point shooting and positionless basketball, he would be hunted on every possession. But I'm going to tell you why they're dead wrong. In fact, if you dropped a prime Muggsy Bogues into 2024, he might actually be more dangerous. First, let's talk about the no-hand check rules. In the 90s, defenders could put their hands on you and slow you down. Today, that's a foul. Can you imagine trying to guard a man who is 5'3" and moves like a literal blur without being allowed to touch him? He would live at the free throw line. Second, look at the space and pace era. Today's game is played in transition more than ever. Muggsy was a one-man fast break. In an era where teams want to run, a point guard who can navigate through the legs of defenders and find open shooters with elite precision is a max contract player. In a league that is obsessed with finding an edge, Muggsy Bogues was the edge. He proved that the shortest distance between 2 points isn't a straight line. It's the fastest man on the floor. The legacy of the Giant Slayer. When Muggsy Bogues retired in 2001, he didn't just leave behind a stat sheet filled with 6,000 assists and nearly 1,400 steals, he left behind a shattered blueprint. For 50 years, the NBA Scouts Handbook had a floor for height, a minimum requirement to be taken seriously. Muggsy didn't just lower that floor, he set it on fire. You can see his DNA in every undersized guard who has dominated the league since. When you watch Isaiah Thomas drop 53 points in a playoff game at 5'9", that's a Muggsy influence. When you see a Fred VanVleet use his low center of gravity to strip a driving all-star, that's the bowling ball physics in action. Even Chris Paul's ability to snake through the pick and roll, keeping defenders on his hip where they can't reach the ball, is a direct evolution of the game Muggsy perfected in the 90s. But perhaps his greatest legacy isn't found in the NBA archives. It's found in every gym across the world. Muggsy Bogues became the patron saint of the short kid. He was living proof that you didn't need to be born a freak of nature to compete. He proved that if you are fast enough, smart enough, and passes a high enough motor, the Giants aren't just beatable, they're at a disadvantage. He wasn't a mascot. He wasn't a novelty. He was a 5'3" problem that the greatest basketball players on earth spent 14 years trying to solve, and most of them failed. Tyrone Muggsy Bogues didn't just play in the NBA. He conquered it, one ankle-breaking steal at a time. So the next time you see a player who doesn't fit the mold, remember the man from Baltimore who walked into a land of giants and made them look small. Because in the game of basketball, height is just a number, but heart? Heart is what gets you into the rafters. If Muggsy Bogues played in today's high-paced, three-point heavy NBA, do you think he'd be an all-star? Or would the modern game be too big for him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to see more videos like this.